Hey guys, welcome to the next episode of Let's Talk Agile. And today I want to introduce you to Elizabeth Jones. Elizabeth and we met over LinkedIn, and her headline really sparked my interest. Number one, Elizabeth calls herself a fixer in the leadership, agile, and management community, which is awesome. I thought that was a term that just immediately spoke with me. And the other thing is that line 70% of projects fail. That immediately caught my eye. And when I saw that, I reached out to Elizabeth and said, you know what, we should have a conversation. Now, what I didn't realize is that Elizabeth has a very unique way of looking at the agile ecosystem. Maybe I'm butchering the term. I think it's called anthropology. So you have an anthropological view of how you view the organizations. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. Thanks. It's great having you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for reaching out, Alex.
So why don't we get started? Tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm sure the viewers would want to get to know you a little bit.
All right. So since 2003, I lucked into an IT role. They set me in the war room and I learned all kinds of stuff, EDI infrastructure, HL7 processing, how to create ERP systems and upgrade and implement systems. And ever since then, that's exclusively what I've done is work on massive organizational changes. And I've never stayed in one place. So I've done this for 20 years and I've worked for a lot of different vendors and a lot of different companies and silos, work disciplines. So I have a lot of experience with a lot of different mindsets. And that's what brought me to enterprise anthropology.
Interesting, very interesting. So I have to ask this because that really piqued my interest. Why do you call yourself a fixer? Or maybe why do other people call you?
There's a movie called Pulp Fiction, and there's a guy in it called the Wolf. And when all the things went bad for the bad guys, they were like, okay, we got to call the Wolf, and he's going to fix it. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I had a boss once call me a bull in a china shop. I go in there and I shine light in dark places. My software is not for everyone. It's a holistic management process that goes from, I guess, soup to nuts, or it takes the executive triangle and turns it on its head. It puts the executives at the bottom and your end users at the top and looks at all the processes and job titles and technology and everything in between. And it sort of hashes out your culture. Why do your projects fail? Another report just came out from Gartner that I think it was like 65%. So McKesson and Gartner right now are saying that 65 to 70% of projects fail. My projects don't fail, but I don't view them like everybody else does.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I think anybody listening in the leadership would probably say, you know what, it's very tough when you're hearing honesty about how the project is going and when somebody finds the light in dark places. But I think that's the type of brutal honesty that's needed. Because if you look at feedback from employees, they behaviorally have something in it, right? So they don't want to rock the boat. They have to be very careful. There's probably, bureaucracy, politics involved. And, in the end of the day, everybody wants to keep their job. So coming in and shining that true light is extremely valuable to some organizations, as long as they are receptive to hearing the truth.
Studying in executive rooms, it's very hard because each one of them, each head around the table, it is an ego stack. And they hire them for that reason. It's a psychology set. It's a type of person that becomes a leader. And they're good at what they do, which is why we hire them. It's why we pay them so much money and buy them planes and yachts. But a lot gets lost in that. Like when you're at the top, you kind of feel like the god of all things, the superpower, the be all end all. And they lose sight of what they're doing. So for example, a decision that's made in a boardroom, it might be a $2,000 point and click. They're like, okay, do we want to keep this button? Well, that button is 68 tab stops for Kaylee, who's going to now have to relearn her job, use a new system, and do 68 tab stops while she's on the phone, while she's being monitored, while her calls are being tracked. What is going on? That's terrible. So that's going to lead to attrition, and that's going to lead to a toxic work environment. So I want to go set with Kaylee. I want to take the executive to set with Kaylee, and we're going to walk through her process. We're going to listen to her calls. We're going to see what the painiest of pain points are, and then we're going to go talk about it. And that's where I come into trouble, because you're right. Honesty is not really spoken in corporate America. And I think America is changing, the whole place. Like, we're in a new day in America, and I think it's time we start having a little responsibility. Corporations, I don't know if most people know this, but corporations are identified by the government as a person. They have personhood. Now it's for tax purposes, of course, but if they have personhood, then that means they can be responsible, held accountable. Their green initiatives, is it virtue to value, or is their mission statement just pretty words? I want to know. I want to see where the value is in their virtue. Maybe they don't have any.
Yeah, I like that. I see organizations spending an enormous amount of money to understand the customer and spending very little to understand their own employees. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, so we are back speaking with Elizabeth Jones. We were talking about organizational culture. So organizational culture is very interesting right now. Companies use the word a lot, but they no longer back those words with actual deeds. The loyalty, on the other hand, for the employees is slowly going away as well.
Yes.
And brand is sort of in a downward spiral because, even the Jack Welch rule of constantly letting go 10% of what perceived to be bottom performers is something that really backfires. And contrast that with Japan culture, where companies are expected to provide employment for life. It's sort of a different atmosphere now. And so when companies want real truth and real feedback from the employees, and they tell them, hey, be vulnerable. We want to know where the pain is. And end up punished for the feedback, it sort of backfires. What's your take?
Every time it backfires. So enterprise anthropology aims to get what those surveys cannot. It aims to look at what really causes the failure and the organizational toxicity in the culture and resolve it. So you get a lot of, we hired Larry, whose brother Harry knew him, and Frank went ahead and hired him and gave him a job. Frank has no idea how to do forensic accounting or underwater basket weaving or whatever. And now we've got a guy who's in charge and has no idea what he's doing or how to run the place. That doesn't mean he has to be fired. It just means he has to be either upskilled or leveraged in a different way. He might have a whole basket of skills that we don't know about. We don't know, but neither does anybody else because nobody's asking the questions. So enterprise anthropology aims to ask those questions, and it wants to see and know and make the organization a truthful, trustworthy organization.
Yeah, that's the dream. Elizabeth, you've mentioned culture surveys. And, companies run those, they run engagement programs and all kinds of retrospectives. But why do you think that organizations still fail to capture what's happening inside of their companies?
I want to go back to something you said a second ago. The culture provides an excellent opportunity for meritocracy to actually show up and function if the company is willing to hear the truth. And the truth is going to be very hard. Maybe you've got a great HR department, but they're not super functional. They all love each other. They work well together, great work-life balance, but the company's suffering. Or maybe your finance department is slacking. You've got somebody in there who could be better in marketing. They were moved laterally, things like that. Looking at the job roles, looking at the technology that they're using, and then looking at the projects that they have and saying, there's a better way.
So I like this. This brings up the phrase, "A squeaky wheel gets the grease," right? If you're running a department and you're not expressing any concerns, you look good on paper,
You
right?
do?
Everything is perfect, everything is steady. The challenge is it could be completely broken inside. I had a great mentor who mentioned something interesting. He said, "Alex, but your top performers are the people that complain the most." And I thought that was a revelation to me because I thought they were always a pain you know where, but instead that was actually true. It's the people that want it to change. It's the people that are alerting you about things that aren't perfect. They care, genuinely care. You know,
Care.
obviously there is always, this one person on the team that constantly complains and has no answers. We're gonna discount that specific one. But mostly people that bring up problems actually give a damn.
Yes, they do. It's very true. And companies ignore that. By and large, they don't want to listen. Bosses toss it off and they're just, blowing off steam. It's not taken seriously. It's not put on paper. And if it is put on paper, it goes into a little suggestion box and goes into the ether. I've been in executive rooms where it's come up and ultimately it was the bottom line that made the decision, not the affect or effect that it was going to have on anybody below them, any software that they were going to have to change, any organizational changes they were going to have to make. It was a blind decision made in about 3 seconds. And that affected the global platform for this chain. That was the moment that I decided, you know what? I can do this alone. I can do bad by myself. And that's what this is. This is just terrible. And this is the head of an international organization. He just doesn't care. Period.
It's interesting because so much work we do is all about discussing the right way to make decisions.
Mhm.
Decisions with full information, decisions with limited information. There are reversible decisions, irreversible decisions. Like there's a whole science about how you're supposed to approach decision making. There's community decisions when a lot of people make it together. There is individual leadership when you want one person to have the veto power or the one person who says, you know what, I don't care what you guys say, we're going to go here. And the dynamics it involves. But in the end of the day, it all gets made as a quick decision versus a slow decision
That is
or
so
an
true.
indecision, right? It's
Yes.
interesting, the dynamics and the company may prepare a long list of tasks to arrive to the decision, invest time, invest money, invest, a lot of resources to put together a comprehensive solution. And in the end of the day, it could be dismissed as never mind.
It's painful at first, like even getting people in the room, because what it actually looks like is having a room full of executives who are bored and have a million other things to do and their phones are going off. And I'm sitting there asking them, okay, question number 1 of 225. This point click, what does it do? How does it affect everyone underneath it? What is it attached to? I need to see the landscape of it. I need to see the architecture. What's it going to do? Is this going to cause mass attrition in HR? Is it going to cause everybody to hate their job and walk out? You don't know. Is it going to cause reporting to go off the wall and be, off in your executive reporting? That's going to be bad. Just things like that. And I've seen it over and like it's the rule, not the exception.
Yeah, so the Swiss cheese, right? Eventually when the holes line up, there's a disaster happening, and you might just line up that last little piece that just makes things happen. I get it. So let's switch gears a little bit because we talk a lot about anthropology, and that's kind of your very unique way of looking into how the companies are structured. So you're mapping the companies into ecosystems of species like executives, teams, partners, customers, etc. But where do you typically see the breakdown between these groups, and how does anthropology actually helps visualize or understand this better?
I feel like using just the study of human beings and psychology sets, and marrying that together with job titles and functions, kind of like using like a Myers-Briggs type, like looking at who's got the mindset to do this accurately and have fun doing it. Can they put their headphones on and just blast out data? Well, awesome. Get them over here. Things like that, making sure the appropriate person is in the right job. And I see that that's where I think almost all of the, excuse the language, but bitching points come from inside. Is nobody sees me, nobody hears me. I'm doing this task that was offloaded to me. It's 3 other people's jobs. Like, who is listening? Nobody. And I'm here and I'm miserable and I'm stuck in this job and I really care, but nobody else does. So using psychology and anthropology, I think we can look at the people we have, and it doesn't have to be like an AI mass firing event. If you already have good people that were hired for a reason, you had mentioned Jack Welch rules. Well, like Japan, if you signed up, you're expected to have that job. Now, at-will employment says that they don't have to give you any kind of anything. They can just sever that. And that's really dangerous. That's where a lot of the loyalty is gone. Oh, so you can fire me anytime. You expect me to show up and sacrifice my life, my time, my effort, my money, my car, all of these things for a dollar amount. And you can just cut me off one day, say goodbye, no warning, no. That's really rude. That's terrible. So maybe we could find a way to reorganize it so that there's how to care for the community. And I actually have a product in development to help that as well, but that's for another time.
Interesting. So I like the word community. Like, so we need to stop referring to companies as organizations. These, unemotional, inhumane blocks. I just, anytime somebody says an org and wants to pick an icon, it's a building. Like, right? It's just, steel concrete, or just, brick and mortar, or,
Oh,
it's just there, cold, totally cold, right? But
yeah.
I like the word community. Community is a little different. It's when everybody's aligned to the same purpose.
Yes.
And that's extremely powerful. I like that. So if you would quickly diagnose the health of the organization, what are like 3 signals you would look for?
Number one, the first people I'm going to go talk to are the people on the ground floor. I don't need to see any executives. I want to talk to the customer service people who get paid the least and probably do the hardest job in the place. I want to talk to the administrative people. How are your processes? Let me, are you doing tons of work that can be automated? Now, when I say automated, I don't mean taking your job away from you. I mean teaching you how to do this, manage it so that you get upskilled and the company benefits from it both. We both win. I think that having a concern for your people and what they're doing and how they're working is matched with how the company's doing, how it's working, and what it needs. Right now, we don't have that. It's the Wild West out there.
So when you say that, I immediately imagine that picture from The Office when, 2 consultants are in the room with everybody on the team just writing their notes. In a yeah, it's kind of comical, but in the culture where people are scared of losing their jobs and they know things aren't going well, why would they speak up?
They wouldn't. And companies lose. They lose really good employees that way because people don't really quit companies. I mean, we've all heard it, right?
Yeah.
People quit situations. They don't just quit managers. Managers are a huge part of it, but there's a book called The Courage to be Disliked. And in that book, it says basically every problem that you have is a people problem because everything depends on other humans. Unless you live in a cave and you grow your own food, you're going to depend on other people, other humans for something. And that puts a whole different perspective under you. So you're looking at doctors like they went to school, they're a professional, but did they upskill? Did they graduate bottom of their class? So looking at people as people and not just professions. And like you said, the org. I hate the org. Big companies. Okay, let's talk about data centers for a second. I have a big thing with data centers. So if a data center comes in and people are talking about how the air quality and water quality has gone down, it gets shot. It ruins their community. Well, big corporations are moneyed and they can provide green initiatives. What are these companies doing with green initiatives? That could be a huge boon for the community. If they were hiring the people and they made a community center, garden, something like that, along with the data center to absorb, to help clear the water, we could tap into local universities and have their students have a whole course on how to, monitor the community. It could give jobs. It could do a lot. They could be doing so much more. And they are wearing this flag. They are wearing a false mask of virtue. They're saying we've got all these green initiatives. Now, Procter and Gamble, I know for sure they really are, in Amazon as well. They know the names of the farmers that grow their palm oil. It's wild that the executive would know where a palm tree is located in Venezuela or wherever it is, but they do. They're doing their due diligence, and it's remarkable. But most companies aren't. And that's just like,
Again, the keyword community, right?
community. It's huge. And philanthropists used to do that. That was their thing, building libraries, building museums, gardens. But we don't see the Kardashians building. Netflix has not put a public park where Dahmer was filmed. They could, but no, it still sits as a vacant lot.
Something happened in the past maybe 30 years where capitalism stopped being positive for everyone and
Yes.
started to favor the few. And I think that's a big shift. We see it in politics, we see it in a lot of other things, we see it in company loyalties. It's a little bit upsetting, but it's just like any other rubber band, right? At some point, it has to move in the opposite direction. You can only stretch it so far. We just don't know where it is. Maybe it's our
Right.
children, it's our grandchildren that will see it. So we just have to wait and see because the entire world is changing. Kind of
Yes.
crazy time,
Quickly.
right? Let's talk a little bit about another area that you specialize in, transformations. We're going to ground ourselves a little bit into the nitty gritty of how the companies function. So you've seen a lot of transformations. Have you seen successful ones?
I have. I've been part of successful ones. I led an initiative to get rid of all the paper for Bridgestone's 2,200 retail stores in North America. So it reduced their carbon footprint, and you no longer get a big, thick stack of carbons when you go there. I did that. And we had to create a new technology that was deployed in another country, that was built by people in another country, and deployed in another language for a call center in Costa Rica. So we did. We built a new technology that used OCR to capture the data from their AP and fed it into the ERP system. We used a middleware system called Core Integrator. And the idea man, his name was Naren Naidu. And he just had this idea, like, we need to do this. We need to reduce our carbon footprint and get rid of all this paper. This is ridiculous. We're trucking these things out from Arizona to Maine. It's ridiculous. So that
And
was,
obviously huge savings as well.
oh my goodness. Yeah. Millions and millions of dollars in savings, of course. I think it was called the AP workflow project to try and get their AP digitized. And we did it. It was successful. It was so painful. They are a rigid PMO. So the framework that I developed was from that project. And that was part of the pitch. They were like, oh, and by the way, all of your development teams, and there's many, they all work on Agile or Safe or Scrum, and the business needs a waterfall project plan. You're going to have to work it from a waterfall project plan. So it's like Watergile. So I Googled Watergile. Like, is there a water? I haven't heard
Turns
of
out there is.
it. So there was a guy that made a post about it like over a decade ago, I think. And he was like, Watergile, trademark it. Nobody has. But that's literally every project I've worked on because the business has a different psychology set than the technology people. And that's why we have to have business analysts to liaise between the two. You have to have translator to go from tech to business.
I like that you're calling this out. By the way, we would both be crucified if we said Watergile was actually how companies worked. The Agile community is relentless. And, I'm running a podcast called Let's Talk Agile, and here we are with the Watergile. So guys, you can feel free to throw rotten tomatoes at us. We're fine. We're not gonna hurt. But I think this is interesting. There is no perfect world. And look out there, it's almost like somewhere, some team very low below at the ground level is doing agile, but up above, the PMO office is running everything in the traditional PMI based approach. And then someone above might consider that they're running another agile structure on top of the PMI. And the hierarchy can be just absolutely nuts. And it just sometimes like you don't know what people are doing, and it's crazy. But in the big companies, this is a huge pain. The scaling agile is not something that's been proven, no matter which framework that anyone uses. And safe, no matter how much you call it scale, is not scaled at all. So it actually causes more harm than good. And I think there's the website that criticizes it openly. So the proof is marketing, and marketing is storytelling. And storytelling, well, some of it is fiction. We don't know how much of it is fiction, but a lot of it is fiction. After all, the business is made to sell more consulting, more transformations, right? So,
Yes.
so what's your take on the Watergile? You obviously trademarked this, and this is pretty cool. I'm not sure where you want to go with this because there's a lot of flack with that term. But what's your take on it? Why do you feel it's so unique?
I feel like I don't feel like it's unique at all. We created a new technology that didn't exist that got rid of all the paper for 2,200 retail stores. It worked. The executives got all of their reporting. We met every crucial item on every stage gate, passed with A++. So I felt pretty good about it. But when I'm looking at the Watergile map, I have, the framework for it. I mean, it's really just tucking Agile in where it needs to go. Instead of involving all the technical people in all these meetings and pulling them into things that they don't need to be part of, how much money is sitting at the table when you've got multiple top, engineers, architects, developers, maybe some executives, managers? That's a lot of money sitting at that table, and you're just wasting time. All they need to know is what they say in Aliens. All I need to know is where they are. That's it.
I love what you said about using agile where it makes sense. There's this interesting push, and I'm not sold on this, but the agile frameworks, they basically elevate themselves above the development and now go, oh, you can run your marketing team in the agile way. Oh, you can do, project management that's, for delivery of whatever else in the agile way. You can do hardware development in the agile way. And you could do pharmaceutical drug development in the agile way. Now, I can't vouch for the success. I've never actually operated in the pharmaceutical world using agile. Some people claim that it actually improves things, but it's kind of hard to see it across a huge transformation when you're talking physical steps, paper delivery, trucks, right? Machinery that's probably doing all kinds of OCR scanning. You take a look at the entire project. If it's a big project, it's very hard to tell what the timeline would be. Could probably benefit from agile, right? Because we're not actually getting from A to B. We don't know what we're going to encounter along the way. Other
Right.
disciplines like manufacturing, well, if you don't have a clear plan and a clear step-by-step process, well, you can't even launch it.
Or how's it going to get built? It's just not going
Exactly.
to happen.
So yeah, it makes sense in certain way. It's kind of more like a dream versus realism, I guess.
I love this metaphor. So we've got a unicorn you've got your beaming executive team. They called a meeting. They're super stoked. They come in all coffeeed up. They're like, we are going to make a unicorn. It's going to be so cool. And then your tech team's going, did they know we can only give them a donkey? No, they don't. They don't know. And they are expecting that unicorn because that's in their brain. They feel like it's possible.
And it's somewhere, and there's a stock ticker associated with it. So yeah, I get it. But you talk about AI, and I kind of want to step in here a little bit. AI is a very interesting tool, and a lot more people are beginning to use it to substitute the brain power.
Yes.
But AI is trained on data and is trained on statistically operated data. And the more there is discussion about Agile, then everything magically has to be Agile. The more there's discussion over standard PMI or whatever else, that's the step it's going to go. So there's really no brains there. Nobody's actually evaluating which approach would work best, maybe a hybrid. It's just spitting out statistical responses based on the data. And I feel like a lot of companies, they can easily make a mistake and go in the wrong direction because someone decided not to actually use any kind of their own brain power and just dump it into ChatGPT, create a list, and follow the list. I feel that's very dangerous right now. We're
Yes.
beginning to substitute things that were real expertise for things that are just based on sources. And again, sources could be based on stories, and stories could be based on fiction. So it's not really clear where we're ending up here. How do you feel about this?
I think you just nailed it. Since AI is the ultimate output of all humanity, you don't know what's in there. You don't know who wrote it. And all of AI, I don't know if this is hit the public zeitgeist yet, but it's a tool. It's not a replacement. It's not human. And whatever you put in is what you're going to get out of it. I don't think people realize that it can be different for everyone. Every AI is different, and there's bias in there that's coded in. And because,
brainwash.
yeah, yes, people don't see that. They're using it haphazardly. And I think within a couple of years, I think it's going to take probably about 2 years. I think we're going to see a massive drop. The AI bubble's going to burst and people will be not so jazzed about it. And then companies are going to have to go and rehire, like Accenture's going to have to rehire their people. How are they going to look? Oh, we let everybody go, but we need you now. That's going to happen because AI
Yeah,
is the miracle drug they thought it was.
yeah. If the trust in AI is going to start going lower and lower. Now, AI has got a lot of good things too. I just got to use it correctly. But let's go back to a topic we covered earlier. So we talked about organizational dysfunction, but do you think that AI would expose the organizational dysfunction sooner? You think there's a way to leverage that brain power?
See, I'm very curious about this. And if I could do an Ipsos survey, I would do it in a second. I'm not sure how to get into companies and get this information, but I want to know how people are using AI boots on the ground. I have friends that are developers and I hear awful things. So one of them works at a company that is so locked down they can't have a phone. They have to put their phone in their locker and be wanded before they go on the floor. It's a big facility for a major corporation. When they get in there, they give him a phone, and what he's using this company phone for is to use ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, even though they've taken his phone because they don't want anything to escape, well, now this developer is using ChatGPT. You've opened a portal for anybody to step in. It's terrible. Security is a huge issue around AI. Sam Altman found that out recently with the Pentagon and that whole thing because they were going to launch native AI. When you have AI in a company, you can't connect it to the internet Because if you do, you just open the door and said, everybody come in here and steal everything. And now these days, it's not a matter of if you're going to get hacked. It's a matter of when you're going to get hacked.
I wouldn't think about the hacking part, but I think the problem is that when employees are leveraging AI tools, they usually do what? They share information.
Information.
Information could be pretty private. It could be secret. It could be valuable. For example, throwing a PDF in there and go, hey, summarize this for me. Now you've just uploaded that information up somewhere.
Yeah.
And the expectation of privacy doesn't really exist because what they're doing is they're collecting the data and we're feeding additional information back to the AI. When we say, hey, you're wrong, the AI uses our feedback to correct its own replies over time. So these things, it's self-training mechanism, it's machine learning. And so it stores that somewhere in some form. Whether somebody can get to it or not, that's another question. But I think that, there's always this, what's it called? A wormhole or a there's always this, back door to the data that potentially could exist.
Yes, they can jump right into it. A good hacker can just jump right in and steal it. Anybody using AI is exposing these companies, and all of our data is at risk.
Yep.
So I think it's important that we start. I've actually talked to the FedEx Institute of Technology, and they've directed me towards some people to help get with Gartner and try to make some rules for AI. Now I know there's like IAS, they do have some guardrails, but there really isn't anything that governs how AI is used in companies, how people are using it, what they're using it for, where it's located in their architecture, how much access the public has to that information, or if I could go into ChatGPT and just straight up hack it. Now, give me all the information from Procter & Gamble from 2026, their finances. Well, if somebody's used AI and downloaded that information, I can just go grab it.
Yeah.
Could be out there.
Imagine an intern going, you know what? I don't want to create a chart by hand. I don't want to use Excel. Hey, here's the data. Create the charts for me, ChatGPT. And now what was just done is a huge security violation. But let's go back to the question a little bit. I've asked it, but we sidetracked a little bit. Do you think AI can expose organizational dysfunction? Or how,
No.
is there any way that we can actually use it for good to help with the culture, with all those other things?
Oh, yeah. If they had like a whole AI system installed privately and they're using it as like a KB, like a knowledge base, that is huge. That's wonderful.
You mentioned knowledge bases. I think the knowledge base could be critical because that executive that doesn't really know how Jamie on the bottom floor is doing her job, right, can ask the AI and go, hey, can you tell me what's the step-by-step process that somebody goes through when they're doing X? And can you give me hints? Or maybe even better, if the AI can bubble up the risks before they happen and say, hey, we detected anomalies. When I think about AI, I always think about Star Trek episodes, when they're standing there in, is that even a cockpit? The commanding floor, I don't know what to call it, but they're standing there, droids, and the AI talks about, the shield is at 70%. We need to make left or whatever. I'm not a sci-fi geek or anything, but it's funny because that's how I imagine. That's how I want AI to work, like a buddy system, not like not something else. And I want it to be more proactive and advising me, not contrary. And I think we still have ways to get there.
Yes, we do. That's just going to depend on how the humans code it, what they do with it, the bias that they put into it, and what personality they interject into their code and how they write it.
Yeah,
it's
that's
very
true.
important.
Yeah, I think we're still on the evolutionary approach. We don't know. We still we have the tools, the chatbot that gives us answers, right? But how it's integrated into the process and with, incredible failures in getting AI into the companies, there's only so many uses of, hey, rewrite my document that you can have. I think that's still yet to be developed. But let me ask you this question. If an executive is listening to this podcast and suspects that there are deep structural issues, where should they start?
If they're going to do it themselves, then they need to take their headphones off and use their water breaks to walk around the ground floor and listen. Ear hustle. Find out what's going on down there. See what your culture is like. Ask somebody what it's like to work there. They might not even know that you're an executive. But getting that blind, genuine, authentic information that you cannot get out of surveys, you're not going to get it because people get punished for those surveys. And we all know it's true.
The only challenge obviously is, and I like the undercover boss, kind of remember those episodes?
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. The only challenge is a lot of people wouldn't open up, So I think this is where I guess professionals like yourself would come in and be able to have a grasp and have honest conversations and get people to actually share the real details.
So if they hired me to do it, I would do something different from that.
Oh, what
I
would you?
would I would have kind of what the police do when there's an adult worker goes missing. So who's going to have the most information? You got to put a big sign up that says, okay, you're not going to get in trouble. This will be anonymous. We need your feedback. All of it. The worst of the worst. The painiest of pain points. Put it down. We need to know. And that's what I would do. I would get an anonymous, I would have like a booth set up where they come in on one side, kind of like a confession booth. And I have them sit on one side and ask them a series of questions. And they let me have it. And then I would take that feedback, put it together, and give it to the executives and let them play ball. Like this is the reality of what you're setting on top of. This is what you're king of, queen of.
I just came up with a term. You could take it, you could trademark it if you want, but I'd call it workflow forensics.
Ooh, I like that. Absolutely.
I don't know, it just came up in my mind because I'm thinking, police investigations and all of that. And there's accounting forensics. So
There is.
this is a workflow forensics. So really, 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 really cool. Now let's ask some fun questions. I know I prepared a few every single podcast just to make things go a little differently. So if organizations were actual ecosystems, what animal would most corporations resemble today? This is to piggyback off the anthropology.
I would say the world would be the ocean and corporations would be sharks.
Interesting.
The enterprise biome, by and large, is very toxic. I guess you could liken it to maybe Gotham City or, I don't know. Yeah, it's very human, unfortunately, in the bad way. Now, fortunately, there's also a yin to that yang. And that means that for every nasty, there's something good. So maybe America, and I throw this on Gen X because Gen X is, I mean, we don't really mince words, I guess. we're kind of tough that way. Yeah, what's the good word? It's not visceral. They are eviscerating. So that's why I would say sharks, because I feel like they're out to get us. They don't care what's in the products. They don't care how it's manufactured. The bottom line is king. Their only God is the dollar. I think we're all tired of it. And we're all tired of being preyed upon. We all feel like prey.
It does feel that way.
How do we change it? What can we do?
There goes my fun question. Yeah, we got down to a little bit not fun. Let me ask another one. If you could run an experiment on one of the Fortune 100 companies with no at all, what would you test?
I would do like that open floor experiment they did in a prison where they let people out of their cages to see what would happen if they gave them a little bit of freedom. I'd like to do that. I'd like to go into a company and say, all right, everybody stop. Everybody close your eyes, take a deep breath, think about your job. Do you like it? Okay, if you like it, you can continue. If you don't like it, what do you want to do? Whole
Oh,
floor.
that's
then
interesting. I don't think anybody asked this honest question.
I have never seen it outside of an HR office when someone's in trouble.
And yet it's interesting because one of the best construction person I know is a musician. One of the best coders I know used to be a brain surgeon. Yeah, it's really incredible. The person was doing research and needed to build their own database out of their study and decided to code it and fell in love with that and just really, really highly talented. There are people that there are people that used to be QA that jump into product immediately and do a tremendous job. So we all have skills. Our resume says one thing, but our skills vary greatly. And we're much
Yes.
more capable of lots of things. So a lot of times I think HR just scans, and now with AI even more, they scan the keywords and expectations are about the same. But we used to hire people in companies that weren't related to the actual task at hand because we wanted open-mindedness, because we wanted a different perspective. I think that's becoming more rare. Maybe in higher echelons, it's more frequent. It's somebody with this experience just jumping in a different industry, but it's the same experience. It would be interesting to flip it. And there are skills that are really, really necessary, but it's not like there's nobody that could show the ropes or cover those skills.
All
So
right.
I think that's an interesting idea. Maybe somebody listening to the show would find this out.
Our
And
playground.
yeah, and maybe you could then contact Elizabeth and let her know how things went, and Elizabeth could write a great book on the topic. So we'll all learn. So with that in mind, this has been incredibly fun. Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time. Guys, I'm going to post Elizabeth's contact information, her LinkedIn on my channel, so you can reach out if you have any questions. This was really, really great. Elizabeth, thanks again. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much. I enjoyed it. Have a great time.